Thursday is the projected day. Yes.
I was not supposed to beat Ben and his wife.
Ron was supposed to be sitting in this seat.
Right.
Okay, but we are live. This is Senate Finance, and we are taking up page 175, an act relating to modernizing the Children and Family Council for Prevention Program. And our first question is, why is this in finance?
Well, for the record, my name is Ben Dobrowski from the Office of Legislative Counsel, and I think that's a really good question. My speculation is that while there aren't any fees associated with this, there are reimbursements and compensation, but everything is funded by a federal grant and comes from a federal grant. So even that compensation and reimbursement. Yeah.
Okay, walk us through this, and then we can, this came to us from Health and Welfare.
So this came from Judiciary.
From Judiciary.
Yeah,
Okay.
and this follows a similarly odd path in the House as well, and it seems to be mirroring that here.
Okay.
But really what this bill does is just it proposes to modernize the Children and Family Council for Prevention programs to comply with the changes of the Federal Juvenile and Delinquency Prevention Act of 2018. The most obvious change is the name of the council, which would change to the Council for Equitable Youth Justice, which based on testimony from the council's chair and vice chair is really more indicative of the work it does, but really just aligns the council with the federal requirements to act as a designated state advisory group for these juvenile programs and to administer the federal grant to support those programs. And I can go into background on the federal law or really the details of the bill itself, but just in a general sense, that's really what the bill achieves.
Committee, what's your pleasure? You don't seem to be really enthused about going through it line by line. Why don't you tell us about the finance?
Sure. So as I said, it's a federally supported program through a federal grant. And really the only compensation aspect is that council members are authorized to receive per diems under 32 VSA section 1010B as is.
Right, but that would normally go to appropriation, so.
Right. So again, your guess may be as good as mine, but based on prior testimony, about 5% of the federal grant is used for compensation. Most of the members actually decline compensation because, and the council is increasing from its current membership of 21 up to 25.
That's
probably it. Right. Now the federal law gives a range of 15 to 33 members. The council wanted to increase it to 25. There's testimony because part of the council's objective is to bring together voices of juveniles and families that are affected by juvenile justice issues. And it's to make more room for those voices on the council. And as I was saying, many of the membership declines compensation, and instead they often use it to send those youth members to national conferences about various juvenile justice issues and initiatives to stay up to date.
So the Council on Prevention is the prevention of what we used to call juvenile delinquency. Now, when we use it, it's usually meant to have something to do with prevention drugs or.
So there are four sort of main areas that, are really general descriptors of what's supposed to, of what the council is supposed to really take care of. Bear with me, let me just get my bearings on those four issues. But it's really supposed to reflect the federal changes on supporting monitoring compliance with the deinstitutionalization of status offenders, which are typically truant children, of which that's really a non-issue in the state of Vermont anymore due to previous reforms. The separation of juveniles from incarcerated adults, so that's commonly sort of the sight and sound separation issues that are commonly, as are commonly known, the removal of juveniles from adult jails and lockups, and the reduction of racial and ethnic disparities within the juvenile justice system. So those are the 4 overarching goals that the council is supposed to support through the federal program.
Doing pretty well on most of them, so.
Yeah, there has been testimony about work to be done on the sight and sound separation, and that's largely due to the
We know.
closure of.
Yeah.
Yes.
Woodside, nobody else wants it.
Oh. Yeah, it seems like the committee's well versed. So, but I'm happy to answer any other questions really about the intricacies of the council or the background of federal legislation.
Committee. Discussion. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I have a question.
Okay.
I think I know the answer. I think I just want to explicitly ask it. Does this increase revenues to the state?
Increase revenue, no,
Okay.
no.
Does it, and what's it gonna, is it gonna cost the state?
It doesn't cost the state anything.
So it doesn't actually have a fiscal effect.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
It's all federally supported.
I knew that. I just wanted to.
Fair enough.
I'll move that we recommend passage.
Even though we don't know why we have it. So
We get it on our books.
that's, yeah. Have you got your,
And then we can say we modernize.
have you got your voting, shoot, there you go, Sir Clark. All right. Senator McCormick has moved that we report H-175 favorably because it doesn't seem to have any impact on the revenues of the state, and it's a good program. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those say no, that's 700. Senator McCormick, would you like to report that?
Gee, I don't know. I've got an awful lot of work to do with that.
Sure.
Yes.
She's an aye behind you.
Senator Bright, 601.
Oh, Senator Brigg, yes, 601, thank you. I'm getting used to there being empty seats in Zoomers, all right.
Tomorrow's notice calendar on the floor on Thursday. Presumably.
If you take it up now,
Yeah,
it'll be on notice tomorrow on the floor on Thursday.
okay. And if not, it'll be Friday.
We're ahead of time, so we're trying to get Tucker here to talk about sports wagering a little early, but you've got time to take that
Why
up
don't I do
now.
that right now?
Two Tuckers?
Tucker
No,
Anderson.
Tucker Anderson.
One that I'm.
There's Tucker Jones.
Oh, that one? No, we don't, he isn't in this film. We only have one film. Okay. We'll get that one going.
And if everything goes as planned, I probably will not be on the floor Thursday for.
I think we can handle it. Oh, ye of little knowledge. This is the last independent decision Spaceways gonna make in a long time.
I don't know.
They choose it.
My kids seem to be making lots of independent decisions these days. My input is swiftly disposed of.
Oh, yeah.
How old are your kids?
9, 7, and 19 months.
You ain't seen
You've
nothing.
got your hands full.
It's the first boy though.
Ah,
Yes, the prodigal son has arrived.
It's worse than their teenagers.
So I'm sure.
boys are much easier as teenagers than girls.
Boys are just dopes. The girls are these psychological mazes.
I have 2 teen daughters.
And we are
Holiday,
going
so-
live.
Oh, okay.
My children, my girls are all smarter than I am, so I'm terrified.
Just get them through 6th grade.
Thank you. Future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Five.
Well, thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you.
Should I go outside until Tucker comes in?
Why don't we go into recess until Tucker gets here? So we'll go off live stream. Go in the door. This has to cost $10 to mail. that what we're looking at?
Yes, good afternoon, Tucker Anderson. We have draft 3.1 of the committee's amendment to H 127 in front of you. It should be timestamped 4/20/2023, 10:02 p.m.
And this,
Is it online?
Click to your agenda.
okay, it is paper clip to your agenda. And this basically adds enterprise before the word fund.
Yes, in the first three instances of amendment, enterprise goes before fund, so that the fund is now called the Sports Wagering Enterprise Fund. The fourth instance of amendment is the newest piece that the committee discussed and asked for, but has not seen in the committee yet. And that is an amendment to section 1320 to the fees that were listed in subsection C. Subsection C now states that each operator that is selected through the bidding process shall pay an operator fee of $550,000. So that is a flat $550,000 operator fee. The commissioner and an operator are then given, the commissioner is given discretion to negotiate with operators the renewal term upon which the fee will be reassessed. However, the department shall not require an operator to pay fee more than once in any 3-year period. So you've got 3 steps. First is the General Assembly has set the fee as $550,000. That fee can be assessed on a renewal term that is negotiated between the parties. So if the department has an operator that they want to negotiate a 5-year renewal term with, they can do so, and the fee will be assessed at the 5-year mark. However, in no instance shall the department assess the fee more than once in any 3-year period.
I think the discussion was, we were trying to give the commissioner something to bargain with. And so, but we wanted to make sure we were getting enough in to cover the cost. And I believe there was $1 million or something in here. Or at least it's in the budget now, it's in here, being allocated to cover the startup costs, 125.
It was $550,000 is allocated from the Sports Wagering Enterprise Fund in year 1 for startup costs.
Right, but it has, the budget has to cover it until the contracts are negotiated and the contracts are negotiated and the fees start to be paid.
Right, well, the Sports Wagering Fund, standalone from any
Right.
appropriations, is going to essentially run a deficit until the contracts are
Right.
formed and the department repays the fund with the fees.
So that's what that is, but we tried to leave the length of the term of the contract open.
Correct.
Because that's bargainable. And then the fee would be set for a 3-year period
Or more,
or
but
more
not any more than once every 3 years.
years. But if it's only, you could, I suppose the contract could, yeah, be, I'll let the commissioner figure that out.
Right.
But they can also do the length and the fee for this renewal fee. So if it costs a lot to regulate them, they could pay more. If it costs almost nothing, they could pay less.
And this structure accomplishes 3 goals and avoids 2 pitfalls. The 3 goals were to make sure that the $550,000 per 3-year estimated cost was covered at base. The second was to make sure that contract terms weren't inadvertently set in the statute and that the department had the ability to negotiate as they need to without the statute creating a contract term. And the third essentially was to ensure that the fee would not be assessed any more than once every 3 years. The two pitfalls that it avoided first was not inadvertently delegating the legislature's authority to raise revenue. So there was discussion in committee of setting in there at minimum $550,000, which would have had no ceiling and would have delegated your plenary authority to raise revenue of the state. And the second pitfall, I think I already discussed it inadvertently, was having a contract term built into the statute, which would have bound the department. And if you ever amended this in the future, potentially could have caused you all to frustrate existing contracts if you were to amend it.
Any questions for Tucker? At this point, this reflects what we discussed. I did have a question for the commission that came up at caucus today. And that was about advertising. It's easier to see.
Thank you.
That was about advertising
Correct.
and how,
Yes,
is that going to be part of what you can negotiate?
correct.
Okay,
Do you need me to, Wendy Knight, the Commissioner of Department, the
that one.
lottery? Okay, yes, the advertising components will be in the contract, so that will be part of what we asked for in the RFP. We will be asking for them for an advertising plan. In statute, one of the things it talks about is, at a minimum, making sure that what is their strategy for ensuring that the under 21 aren't advertised to. So we're asking them to give us their advertising plan. Then based on that, that will be part of the evaluation criteria, the selection criteria. And then we will then turn that into the contract terms, right? So then we say, okay, you've agreed to X, Y, Z, and that includes making sure that there's, an advertising plan that has integrity and that doesn't do what the General Assembly asked that it not do. And then we also, based on our conversations with our state counterparts and our sports betting consultants, we will be able to see the best practices that other states are using and incorporate that into the contract. So just like we ensure to the best of our ability that minors don't buy alcohol, we have programs in place for that. We would do the same with the sports betting and the advertising.
Okay. The other thing that came up that was interesting is not making the experience itself addictive. And there were things about flashing lights, and has that come up in your discussion at all, that
They're not making sports betting addictive?
you get on the site and
Uh-huh.
being there, that, this was brought up at caucus, that the way it is set up itself can be somewhat addictive.
Is this by someone who actually goes on one of these apps?
No, Senator.
So I can try to, I'll wait. Yes, I can try to address that.
Okay,
So the way that the bill is very robust in terms of those safeguards is it's allowing the player, the operator, and the department to put in limits, right? So that you can see when there are behaviors that aren't consistent, like the betting amounts and the frequency. So you have those provisions to limit that. And then you also have the ability to, one of the things that the bill also says is you cannot, see if I get this right, you can't use the term risk-free bets, right? Because they're not risk-free. So the statute also has that. And then part of the RFP, again, along with the advertising, is putting limits around promotional bets. So I feel like the bill has some really solid safeguards around ensuring the integrity of the betting and ensuring that it is, a safe environment, regulated, et cetera.
I might check with Senator Watson because she brought it up, and she deals with teenagers every day and seemed to have a sense that there were things that could go on just in the presentation that might be attractive or so as long as we're aware of that.
We know the computer programs can be set up such that there's a message, the person responds to the message, and the way that person responds will determine what the next message from the company is. Gamblers sometimes on their own, they don't need to be told. They get the idea, well, I just lost, I gotta win it back. Are there messages that go out that sort of
Yeah.
play on, I've got to win it back? Or, hey, it's found money, why don't I bet it all? I'll go on 10-1, you never know. I mean, that kind of
So
thinking to stimulate that.
there are pop-up messages. So part of the responsible gaming and part of the safeguards is to have these pop-up messages, right? That, hey, you know, like reminding them of how much they bet that day and et cetera. So there are, you know, sort of safety measures in these pop-up messages. And the other thing that, you know, Representative Odie, she was on the sports betting study committee and talked about was financial literacy. And then I've had some conversations with the treasurer of Piacheck. So I think there's some things we can do around financial literacy as well. That just, if there's a pop-up message that said, hey, you've reached your limit, there's no reason why we couldn't investigate the operators doing a pop-up message regarding financial literacy. Hey, you just bet $20, what if you invested that $20? I'm just telling you things we could do. I don't need you to put it in the bill. I'm just telling you some things we could do that there's a, you know, that are creative, so that appeals to me, so.
Part of what you would ban, I assume, are pop-up messages saying, congratulations, you just won $100. Now, wouldn't you like to bet that 2-1?
There are all kinds of things that we will look at and make sure that we're being as safe as we possibly can, right? We want this to be a robust market. So again, we're trying to bring the illicit market to the regulated market because we don't want to discourage players and operators from being in that regulated market. But we understand, we agree, we want to reduce harm as much as possible, which is what we do when we working in the lottery and division of liquor control. We understand we're selling, right? But then we understand we're trying to promote responsible consumption and behavior. Same kind of dual mission with sports betting.
Okay. And this amendment works for you.
Yes, it does, and I appreciate the committee's questions, and I appreciate Tucker's making sure the language is precise on the operator piece.
Committee, any questions for the commissioner or anybody else in the room? No. Okay. Next step.
I move that we approve with a further amendment.
You have to first move to amend.
I move to amend
Cover just
H.
okay. It's gone away online. Got more DCF. Okay, we are amending
H1.
with draft 3.1.
Timestamp April 20th, 2023 at 10:02 PM.
So the motion is to amend H127 as it came to us. Okay, and that's with the adding of the enterprise fund to make it clear that's the kind of fund it is, and with adding that $550 for the first 3 years and leaving the terms of the license and whatever the next renewal fee will be up to the commissioner once we see what the actual cost is of administering this program. And if we change it, I assume it has to come back here, but
I assume that as well.
okay.
I just want to make sure, since I didn't walk through it again, but it was in the other versions you looked at, that the fifth instance of amendment is capturing non-resident winnings as part of Vermont's
Yes.
taxable income.
And that is in
The fifth
the
instance of
fifth
amendment,
incident amendment, yep, and that is a part of this one, right?
that is correct.
Yeah, and that was at the request of Commissioner Bolio, just because it said lottery and something, and this would say winnings. Okay. And if you're here, and you're voting here, you owe it here, so. Further discussion. Senator McCormick.
I think on other bills, from time to time, we, certainly our discussions, I don't know about our votes, our discussions push the boundaries a little bit. The jurisdiction of this committee over this bill has to do with its fiscal impacts on the state alone.
Fees, and then we had two clarifying financial funds and a tax.
But it's not finance, it's not,
It is the finance, that's what we're looking.
Mark is saying, no.
The fiscal nature is what gets it here. Once it's here, it's mud wrestling.
You don't make any friends, as we found out with dispatch, but if you, if there's strong feelings about,
Well, I know across the hall, they rewrite bills all the time, but
Yes,
people
they do.
generally speak of it as that they're getting away with something they really shouldn't be doing. But I get it here, so this committee's vote on this bill, if it's a positive vote, is actually in support of the bill on its merits, not simply a check on its fiscal implications.
If I could,
okay,
Same
Senator
appropriations.
Ron, who chairs the other committee of jurisdiction.
right, and I'm not going to get into a territorial matter here. I think it's fine to talk about the full merit of the bill, but and it's also a question of appropriations as well, but you're not just voting to raise money, but to focus on raising revenue for the first time, I think, for gambling addiction and mental health around gambling. So I just want to note that. I mean, we are the committee that raises the revenue rather than figures out how to appropriate it. But, I have always, being on Ways and Means before this, I've often really lamented that tobacco taxes or other types of vice taxes related to addiction don't often go to addressing the problem that of addiction. Our tobacco revenue does not go to addiction or cessation or prevention. That's the tobacco settlement funds that do that. So, you're also, in my mind, voting to raise money for the first time that will go to the Department of Mental Health to address gambling addiction.
But technically, this committee has worked on the financial sections of this bill. We have not worked. We have left that to the summer study and then to economic development, who do regulate liquor, lottery, and other gaming.
Madam Chair, in yours and my years together, you have often cut the discussion short in this committee by saying, we're getting into policy.
I have tried to keep us focused on our portion of the bill.
Yeah.
Even in dispatch, it was the formula that threw us all off. Because, you know how well Natural Resources likes it when economic development intrudes into Act 250. And I know how much I liked it when the former head of economic development got into tax policy, even though he said all economic development was tax policy. So there's ongoing tension. There obviously is an energy and utility regulation between us, and that's a good thing. But I try not to stray unless the committee feels there is a really essential reason something has come to light that the other committee didn't get. There's nothing that forbids us from doing it. It is part of the system.
There's something different to us doing it. Anytime we offer an amendment that didn't fit the restraints that the chair often recommends to us, often acquiesce to. But if it didn't require that, then anytime any committee like ourselves offered an amendment on the floor, someone could stand up and call a point of order, and we would be told to go back to our den and behave ourselves. But they don't tell us to do that because we can do anything
Yeah.
we want,
Anybody can,
just like appropriations does all the time. And we complain, they stray into our territory. But that's their prerogative.
they did make it this one
We don't
major
have to vote
change
for
to
it.
the workforce bill that we got today. But, okay. We have a motion to amend with,
Draft 3.1, date for 2023 at 10:02 p.m. 8 p.m.
okay,
Yeah. 2 p.m.
yes, all right. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. I'm hearing that as 601. Okay, now we need a motion to approve as amended.
I move to approve H127 as amended.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Moving to approve the bill as amended. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
I'm getting that as 511. Is that correct? Okay. The bill has passed. Now I need a report. Senator Chittenden, would you like to do that? That would be fine. Thank you. Okay. One big one down. And we are not scheduled until 3:30?
Oh, I usually come at 2:30.
At 2:30?
We got till 3:30.
At Ellen? Okay, and then let's see if we can get Amarin in like it's.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So when was this?
For the, compact that we got today. And see if any
So
other
if
draft.
you Google, there's like an also.
Yeah.
All social.
Okay,
Our-
committee, you've
our-
got a 15-minute break.
Can't hear us right now. Now she can.
There she is, so we definitely have a quorum. Okay. Thank you for being in, Phil. We got 4 compact bills today. I was warned on Friday that they were coming. So we're trying to just, I assume there's a fee in them somewhere? Or something that got them here?
Yes, there are fees and I think there's an eventual potential revenue impact.
Okay.
But that's all from the fiscal note. The fees themselves are not in the bill. They're
Somewhere else.
they're just on the compact commission page.
Okay. So the floor is yours.
All right, let me know. So Jen Garvey, Legislative Counsel. I am here with H282, an act relating to the Psychology Interjurisdictional Compact. And this, I don't know if you have gone through any of the compacts yet. This one is a little bit different from some of the ones that you'll hear about.
Nursing, I think.
Oh, yeah, that was clear to you, but nursing and
Years
medical
ago.
licensure.
Yeah, and then
All right,
COVID,
This is
COVID
psychologists.
changed everything and now we're,
so this is psychologists, and it's specifically actually for doctoral level psychologists because of the way it's written. So the Psychology Interjurisdictional Compact is abbreviated as PsyPact. There are 2 paths that a provider can take who wants to participate. They can take either or both. One of them is to do telepsychology, so telehealth for psychology, where the provider would be still licensed or still based here, physically here in Vermont, but would be connecting remotely with the patient, maybe in another state. And then there's a separate path that they can do, which would be a temporary authorization to practice in another state in person for up to 30 days. So there are different fees for those. It's $40 each to the Compact Commission for each of those. And then the e-passport goes along with the telepsychology, and that's a $400 initial fee with a $100 annual renewal to the Association of State and Provincial Psychology Boards. And the temporary in-person face-to-face one is $40 to the Compact Commission, $200 to initial fee to the Association for State and Provincial Psychology Boards, and a $50 annual renewal fee. But these are all paid by the provider to the compact. So this isn't from the state. This is paid by the provider. And then the state gets charged, I believe it is $10 per participating licensee. So
from the compact.
$10 per authorization holder licensed in our state, up to a maximum of $6,000. So that if we had 600, I don't think we even had that many licensed psychologists. But if we did, we'd max out.
PhD level, yeah.
We'd max out at 6,000. So $10 per licensee per year, based on the current compact commission fee that they impose. And so that's one of the things that they're authorized to do in the compact. The compact commission can set the fee or dues that states will pay for participation.
Okay, so compact basically says if you're licensed to practice in Vermont, then you would be licensed to practice in the.
So this is where this one is a little different. Right.
This is, I'm not gonna be a traveling psychologist and travel around and see people. I'm going to do telepsychology.
Well, for a lot of the compacts, they work for telehealth, however it's being delivered. What's different about this one is it's not really a multi-state privilege to practice the way a lot of the compacts are, where if you join the compact, you either can fast track licensure to another state, or you sort of held almost like multi-state licensure.
Right.
This one is that if you do this, if you join the compact and you pick one of these, one or both of these routes, then you do have the authority to practice in other jurisdictions by telepsychology or this temporary short-term in person. So maybe if you were a traveler, but it doesn't get you, you couldn't go to that state and open up a practice. You're not getting a full license to
Residential
practice. It's
license.
limited.
So
license.
if I had a client I was working with and they came here to school or to work, they moved. They didn't come here. I'm here, I'm working with someone. They go off to school in Baton Rouge or they move to California. I could follow up with them with this temporary.
So you could do the telepsychology, or you could go out and, if you did the temporary in-person face-to-face, we could go out and
Be
meet them
temporary
once.
in person.
In person, yes.
Okay, so I could do a temporary in person.
For up to 30 days, so it's pretty temporary.
So I guess I could fly down and help my client in a crisis.
The crisis, or maybe to help them transition to a local
New
provider.
Yeah, well, that's, okay,
But telepsychology, it seems like it may have more practical applications.
that's what I'm thinking, in that I could then, if I choose that route and I pay all the fees to the compact, I don't have to get a Louisiana license.
No, as
If
long as you are,
Louisiana is a member.
right, as long as you are practicing into what they call receiving state. There's a compact state where the client is physically located when the telepsychological services are delivered.
So I could then, as long as I pay, is the annual fees?
Yes, there's an initial fee and then a renewal.
Okay, so as long as I kept my
35%
status up and paid, I could see that client. Is there any limit to how many clients?
Not under this, so not for specifically for these doctoral level psychologists.
Okay,
Vermont, as you may recall from last year, set up our own telehealth licensure and registration system for folks, providers licensed in other states to get a more limited license to practice here, or authority to practice here.
so the individual will pay 400 plus an annual renewal, and the state is on the hook for $10 a participant,
Yes,
up to 600, which is the biggest risk the state has, is $6,000.
right. That's the
Is that
maximum.
annual?
That is annual. So $10, it's an assessment of $10 per authorization holder licensed in the home state.
And we don't have, we're quite sure, 600 licensed
I am not quite sure, but I'm
psychologists.
fairly sure.
Fairly
I would be
sure. I
surprised.
think there's something we're trying to recruit here.
Let's see if I have info from, I don't think I have actually the number of providers currently in Vermont. But OPR is projecting, this is actually sort of getting into hearsay land here, but Nolan's testimony from what OPR said, which is that OPR projects that up to 106 current licensees may use the compact.
That's a 16.
10,000? Right, no,
No,
1,000,
that's thousands.
1,060.
Yeah, less than 2,000. Which is not a whole lot.
Plus, we may lose licensee, if we have out-of-state providers who are maintaining a Vermont license, who stop maintaining a Vermont license. There may be
That's
some,
okay, but I
Revenue
would
loss
think
from
we
that.
might be actually the beneficiary of being able to add psychologists that might live in New Hampshire and don't, would like to see their clients here or live in New York, and it's a lot easier.
right, there was support expressed for this by OPR and by some doctoral level providers to expand access to mental health services for Vermonters, particularly for people who might be part of a marginalized community that might not find representation here, but might be able to connect with more comfortable feeling providers who are
in
in
your city. Senator Chip.
I'm fine with this. I just have a question and it might tie into the other compacts we're gonna consider. I was reading the JFO note, so I apologize if you did state this, but I don't see anything in the JFO note or what I recall of your testimony that requires the states and the compacts to have the same fee amount. So could anybody game this out and just try to register in one state where it's a lot less, and the renewals are less? Do we care?
The fees for participating are set by the compact itself,
Okay.
so they're not state by state fees.
150 is across the board for all compacts. I saw $150 annual fee, you know?
Vermont, so this is Vermont psychology licenses, our full licenses. Oh, and so Nolan's fiscal note says there are 534 psychologists licensed in Vermont. There you go. Of these, 106 are from states that have signed on to the PsyPact, on this compact. So the thought is that maybe some of them or all of them would stop paying the $150 Vermont renewal fee and instead pick up the
Well, wouldn't they have,
compact.
don't they have to have a license in some
You
state?
have to have a license in some state. You have to have a home state you're licensed in.
Okay, so if they live here.
Yes, if
They
they,
can't be licensed in New Hampshire, live here and be practicing out of their living room in Waterbury with a New Hampshire license, right?
Residency in the state to register there.
no, you don't have to have residency in the state to be licensed by the state.
Right, you can get,
And
because we have people in New Hampshire that may live in New Hampshire and have an office, or we have people in Vermont that practice at Dartmouth.
right, I mean, generally in telehealth, the provider has to be licensed in the state where the patient is located. So presumably you can have a Vermont resident psychologist in their living room in Waterbury who is licensed in New Hampshire and doing telehealth with patients in New Hampshire now.
Okay, yeah,
So will our $150, I guess it's every 2 years, so even
Yes,
years.
$150.
Will we have to sync with what the PsyPact requires it to be, or do we just keep charging what we want, they charge what they want, we just recognize each other?
Well, I think the thought is that we may not, so if we have Vermont licensees who want to be practicing, physically here and have a full license, they would continue to pay that $150 every 2 years. And if they wanted to be part of the compact, they would have to pay the compact fees.
Okay.
okay,
So I think the thought is that we may lose some out-of-state providers who are currently maintaining a Vermont license in order to do, say, telepsychology here with patients who are in Vermont. They may stop renewing their Vermont license and just rely on their compact authority to do telepsychology here if
It's
Vermont
cheaper.
joins the compact. Right now, we're not in the compact, so they can choose.
But the fiscal note says that this compact doesn't allow compact fees. All others, it seems to imply that others do, but PsyPact does not allow for compact
I
privilege.
think because in other compacts, you are getting an actual license to practice through the compact. Whereas this is just some authority to practice, but it's not a license.
Last question, comment?
yes.
So I'm fine with all of this. I would just be curious, how long has it been at 150? And if we do get to determine this, we can't charge that compact fee
I think it
and
may be coming next. We have not had a fee bill since 2016 or 17. So,
I would just support increasing it because the third bullet point of the summary also says that more staff and IT resources could be needed at OPR to process
well,
fees.
we will be getting the OPR. We have it tomorrow because if it's anything like it usually is, it needs a block of time.
So the way I'm used to compact working, at least the interstate medical licensure compact that I worked on a few years ago when that was enacted. Being part of a compact is really sort of a streamlined process for getting licensed in other states. So it relies on the state of initial licensure to have done all the due diligence to verify educational background and board certifications and whatever else the person holds. And then other states can use that, recognize that to do the licensure yes, in a faster and more streamlined way than, and I think for a reduced or somewhat reduced cost, then going and going through the full licensure process in each state, which can be onerous.
So you.
This is a little bit, this is what's different about this particular one, is it's not really doing that. You're not getting a full license. You're getting either authority to practice telepsychology in all of the other participating states, or authority to go practice temporarily in person for up to 30 days a year, or both, but you're not actually getting a full licensure and a full license in the other state.
Getting my familiarity back on this. We worked on this together.
The interstate medical license.
If you're a Massachusetts practitioner, you're gonna practice in Vermont under the interstate compact.
The medical licensure? one?
Yeah,
Okay.
because I'm trying to remember, you pay a Vermont fee as well, right? Or
I
do you-
believe you do.
You do.
Look at my contact.
And we did a whole bunch of stuff with this during COVID.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Now,
different. That was, we were just allowing
Right.
providers to practice
Whatever.
here.
Yeah.
Doing telehealth because it was a pandemic. And now you have kind of memorialized that in an ongoing way by creating the telehealth licensure and registration system that is not quite fully operational yet. So right now, we're in and actually you just extended a telehealth registration. We're just doing a registration thing for now until the real system is set up. But the telehealth registration, the permanent one, allows somebody to treat a limited number of patients, 10 or 12 patients at a time for a limited period of time. The telehealth licensure one is much more broad, but you wouldn't be ever having a physical practice here in Vermont without getting that license.
I have friends who are being treated for Lyme disease by somebody in New Hampshire. And it's a lot easier for them to do that on telehealth than to drive to New Hampshire. And they were doing that during COVID. And it was last year because I was on health and welfare. We set up this temporary, you could see a limited number of people here with a partial kind of license or a.
Right. Then that's the one that would be, so in your friend's case, it would really depend what New Hampshire has set up. We would be saying, if you're gonna be seeing our Vermont patients, you need to get some kind of a temporary.
A fee or say, yeah, it was a partial
Yes, you're right.
license, yeah.
But that was not as expensive as just a regular Vermont license. You're still operating under
Right.
the Massachusetts
Full
license.
Vermont license.
You're operating under your
Right.
Massachusetts license. You have,
Because you're never coming, because you're not coming here and opening a practice or
Yeah.
practicing at that.
so it would not be possible or profitable for a Vermont practitioner to get primarily licensed in some state where the licensing is cheaper and then act as a, and I'm thinking like, say, corporations that register in Delaware, where no one from the corporation ever goes there except their lawyer, you know, or, places registered in the Bahamas, stuff like. Is it possible for someone to monkey with the system and game it?
I think I'd want to defer to OPR or the Board of Medical Practice on that. I think
Maybe
maybe,
ask them to talk to us about this, but this says, I am a Vermont licensed psychologist. PhD. I am seeing, if I join the compact, I can see any patient in another compact state. I can see only patients that are part of my Vermont practice if they move to another state, or the example that came up in one of these was I think it was the temporary license. You got a college kid that goes off, his psychologist works with him. He says to 3 or 4 of his buddies at college, geez, my guy's really good. could that compact licensed Vermont-based psychologist provide service to the 3 or 4 or 10 or 20 buddies?
They're all in a compact state, yes, once you're participating in this psychology interjurisdictional compact, you can practice into any receiving state.
But the psychologist would remain in Vermont.
Yep.
Okay, on the other hand, if these guys found a counselor they liked at college, and then they all went home for the summer to 5 other compact states, then that psychologist from college could continue seeing them at home.
As long as all of those states are in the compact, then yes, and there are, I was just trying to look up, there were, when this was in the House, there were 34 other states in the compact, but 2 more were somewhere, had already passed it, but hadn't started yet. I think it may be live in 30, so 37 states have now enacted, and it's effective in 35 states.
Okay, and we will be 38 if we do it.
Right, so it means, you know, there's a lot of states.
And the revenue impact on Vermont would be not the Vermont-based psychologist, but the New Hampshire-based psychologist that is getting either getting a Vermont licensure or that temporary 40
For
day.
telehealth.
Yeah, mental health. They might not renew their Vermont license or whatever
Yes,
iteration of it, and just go on their New Hampshire license, assuming everybody, but if they go on their New Hampshire license, then they can see, okay, I guess they could then continue seeing their Vermont clients.
as long as Vermont is in the compact.
As long as Vermont and New Hampshire are in the compact. Okay,
I think because of Vermont's topography, Montpelier and Barre are really the only major population center in the middle of the state. Otherwise, everything is lined up on the sides,
Newport,
near the state lines.
Newport.
Newport is in a major population.
Right. No, but I mean, say Burlington, and, you know, of course, Plattsburgh, you got the
So
lake.
New York is not in the compact.
Oh, it's not, all right. But,
Nor is Massachusetts.
oh, Massachusetts is not?
And Massachusetts
No,
isn't in
like-
the nursing. Massachusetts is a world unto itself when it comes to healthcare and health insurance.
Legislation has been introduced in both of those states. but it is not-
Because that's where it would
We
make the
do.
most sense. Brattleboro is really,
We didn't
culturally
allow
part of Western.
chiropractors in Massachusetts.
I got that.
There's a very tightly controlled market in Massachusetts. At least traditionally.
So Massachusetts and New York both have active legislation, but so do we. We're
And
almost
I think,
active, so, you know.
weren't both of those not in the nursing compact? I think the idea was that New York is a market unto itself. I mean, it's so big and so populous, they don't care.
we were getting providers from all over the country.
Right, but that was a free,
This would make the most sense then in my neighborhood, in the so-called Tri-Town area. Hartford, Vermont, Hanover, New Hampshire, Lebanon, New Hampshire. That is the neighborhood. It's a bi-state neighborhood.
I guess I'm not sure what you mean by would make the most sense.
Of I don't think if someone in Norwich wanted to get psychotherapy, and then they went to someone in Hanover, they wouldn't think twice about the fact that they were across the state line.
Well, that's okay, so they're going into another state. This
I'm gonna try and get one.
You know, the provider's license for the patient physically present.
You can't,
So this is
we had
patient is
Ellen,
going across.
The patient is going across.
Okay, this is for the
I'm hoping
For
to
the
have it
Hanover
5-4.
psychologist.
This is for
That's a deal.
telepsychology, so the patient stays home in Vermont,
Okay, right,
Provider.
right.
stays in their office in
Thank you.
Hampshire.
Right, so geography actually has very little to do.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, we will hear from Nolan. Great.
He said we'll be in at 1:15.
3:50, Alan or Nolan? Nolan is coming in. Okay, we will hear from Nolan before we hear. But our, again, concern is the money and it's the risk that some of those out-of-state doctors might not do it. On the other hand, this started in insurance and has moved into healthcare licensing, but it does seem to be the way of the future with everything on computer. It's kind of hard to move to another state and hide your past. Kind of, sort of. So we will go through. Okay, you got a second one of these?
No, no,
Just
we
one.
split him up among staff, so this one's mine.
Well, Ameren's got two.
Amber's got two, Katie's got one, I've got one.
Okay, well, as soon as we can get folks, we're gonna get them in and get them out.
Great.
See where they can go. All right. So Nolan should be here momentarily.
Let me stay for his.
Yeah. We're going to have tomorrow, we do have the professional regulation office, and maybe we could ask Lauren Hibbert while she's here, if you drop her a note and say we may want to talk about anything we should know about the complex.
Yes, and either Lauren Hibbert or Lauren Lehman. Lawrence.
I haven't got her tomorrow. So, or unless Lauren wants to bring someone. Because these fees usually take a while to, I'm assuming there's as many as there usually is.
So there are, yes,
Yes, there's
Yes,
lots.
at one point-
Just going through them.
at one point attached to this bill. So yes, I was in that room while we were going through.
And usually once we changed the initial nursing fee, because we were still trying to encourage nurses to stay. I think that's about the only change we've ever made. Maybe we did one once at the request of AG to make sure they covered their costs. We usually don't do too much to it. It's based on what it costs them to regulate the industry, the profession, so. But it is long since. So we will get that and give it a day or two to percolate, see if you want to hear from anyone and get it out of here.
The question I will have when we get this back is the $150 increase in that fee bill you referred to? If not, then we want to consider increasing it in this one. So it's unclear to me if there's a fee bill out there that is raising this fee, because it seems like it's ripe to be increased.
I think there's a whole rationale behind all of their various fee proposals that
They can tell us.
PR and
We-
yes, and JFO.
It's a confused area. We have, it's not uncommon to get a fee set in a separate bill. And then it just goes into the fee structure without, the fee bill tends to be existing fees to get raised. Sometimes we raise them outside if something untoward happens, like DFR and captive insurance, and they've been running a deficit. We might take that fee out of sync. But we have set fees in legislation before. And we have also weighted and attached that fee to the fee bill, so it can go either way.
I think there's a lot of rationale about both the cost of regulating the industry and also, industries that may need people in them or people may face barriers to entering that OPR has concerns about setting fees too high and discouraging people from needed fields. So I think that's some of the balance you'll see.
Which is the nursing one down.
But on that point, I'll just say $150 over 2 years, plus with the additional cost, this seems like relatively very low compared to what we ask people to pay to register their cars, so.
Well, traditionally, one of the problems we had is the nurses came in and said, we can get registered, it was something like 300 or 350 in Vermont, we can get registered in Maine, and it's a compact state. We can get registered in most of the country for like $150. It's half of Vermont and it's a compact state, so we get to practice almost anywhere. So there's competition also going on here. We don't want to encourage the psychologist in New Hampshire cancel. I mean, inertia is a powerful motivator. So if we make it too stark a difference, we might overcome.
I just hate for some of my political opponents to raise the fact that we raised the fees across the board for everyday Vermonters, but we didn't do it.
They're gonna do it anyway.
Okay, but we didn't do it for doctors and lawyers.
Oh, we're doing it. Okay, no one. Hi, come on up. It's like old home day for me,
Right? Just like good old days.
except I sat down there.
For the record, no line, what we're trying to squat this way. I have a handout, but it didn't send it because it didn't, well, I didn't know I was coming. But I have multiple documents. I have fiscal notes on each of the 4. I know we're just doing 282. But I also have a memo that I put together that sort of summarizes all the different compact impacts in one place.
Okay,
Which I think
wow.
will be helpful. So if you give me a second here, I can send it to Jill. Here it is. So I'll send you. This is 282. And then somewhere around here I have, oh, here it is. So 2 cents each, both of them to Jill. Would you like me to be specific to this particular bill?
Yeah, because
Or,
we're just,
okay,
we don't have enough time to take on all 4. So I'm just trying to get them pushed in
sure.
where we've got time. And I think this may be,
Sure. Well, this one's, it's funny because there's 4 of them. But
yes.
there's 3 of them that are very similar, one that's not, and this is the one that's not.
Okay, so maybe we'll do the other 3
So I can explain.
together. Okay.
Yeah, it might be helpful. But
Okay.
what I'd say about this one is that, you know, so with these, so let me just start from the beginning. According to OPR, there's about 534 psychologists, we're doing 282 right now. It's about 534 psychologists licensed in Vermont. Of those, about 106 are from states that have signed the SIPAC, we call it SIPAC, the short so far. So the revenue loss would be from people who are currently paying a fee that would no longer pay a fee instead of be paying the compact. And so there's a bit of a revenue loss.
What's the fee?
So the current fee is. You know, of this one, I actually don't have the fee.
This is the one that's $10 for the
Well, no, no.
licensee, and then there's the fees that
Well, I'm
the,
talking about the current fee.
What are we going to lose?
oh, you said 150, I think in
Was
your
it
fiscal note.
$4,800.
Maybe I'm looking at the wrong one. Oh, here, no. Sorry, I would have been more prepared. Oh yeah, here it is. It's currently, if we read, okay, so Vermont renews, so all the licenses are on 2-year period. For this particular one, it's January and even years, and it's $150. So the next renewal will be January 24. So
Okay.
the effective date of this bill is until July 1 of 24. So it wouldn't impact July, it wouldn't impact the 24 revenues, because the effective date of the bill is after when people would be paying their fee.
Okay.
So in short, there's no real fiscal impact immediately to this particular area. It could be larger down the road, but by then it would be 2 years out, and I know that there's movement about looking at fees and across the board, so it sort of becomes mush in that.
Yeah.
Now, what Jen was just referring to was that with the other compacts, not to confuse you, but the other compacts, you were allowed to have what's called a privilege fee. And so the other bills, they charge $50 for a privilege fee. So you join the compact, and then you pay it, additionally, you pay whatever you pay to the compact, and then to get your Vermont, be able to use it in Vermont, you pay an initial $50. So in the other compacts, let's say the license was $200, we're getting 50 of that back. With this one, though, there is that you cannot have a privilege fee. And so that's the one thing. The second thing that makes it different is, additionally, the compact charges the state. The other compacts don't charge the state. This compact charges the state $10 for each licensee that claims Vermont as their residence. Now, it's capped at $6,000 a year. We estimate it might be $1,000 tops, but it's basically minimal. So in short, we really don't estimate a big fiscal impact in the immediate on this particular thing. In this case, the whole question of, even though the revenue impact is the policy implications greater than the negative potential fiscal impact, and the answer to the other committees is that they believe so, which is why they pass all these compacts regardless of the revenue losses. Let's see if there's anything else I'm missing. No, I think that's the gist of this particular one. Apologies, I'm not prepared.
Okay. So this is the outlier because we don't get a privilege fee.
Correct.
Which we can offset what, because anybody coming in from out of state would pay the privilege fee.
Normally.
But this one, we don't. So this is the one.
And we pay
$10.
$10.
And this, age 62, is that what we're looking at now?
62, which is counseling, or 77, which is the physical therapist.
Yeah.
86, which is audiology.
So we're out of state applicants. We think we're gonna get 254. This says it's 200 in odd years. So we could lose 54,000.
No, which one are you looking at?
I'm looking at your,
Was it for 62?
We're on
Yeah,
282 right now.
we're 282. Okay, it's not in that list.
Oh, you're looking at the memo.
I'm looking at the memo.
Yeah, the memo, so the memo,
Forget the memo.
yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to confuse you more.
Sorry.
Yeah. So let's unpost that memo
Okay,
and let's put the memo with the other three.
memo's gone. Okay.
Apologies for confusing you even more.
All right.
Again, wasn't prepared.
Well, this was last minute, just because of scheduling, we
Sure.
had some open time.
Sure. I do recommend maybe you do the other three sort of lumped together.
Do the other three, okay,
Help
that's,
for the floor as well.
good advice, all right.
Although it might not work there's three different lawyers working on them, so you have to think about their schedules as well.
Yes, well, we've got Ameren to do two.
And you have Katie and then you have Jen.
Well, Jen's here, so if we can get Ameren and Katie at the same
Yeah, they'll
time,
be back to back if Katie accepts.
okay, good,
Just to consider.
yes.
I definitely agree with splitting this apart. So the other three seem to make sense, but now I'm more confused on the previous one, the SIPAC one.
Yeah.
Because I'm reading the joint fiscal note and it seems to imply, if you look at the bullet points, that we will continue to collect the fee. But now I guess we will not, if we join the SIPAC, Vermont will not collect the fee at all.
We're gonna collect the current fee.
Continue. We will
Well,
continue to collect that fee.
until July. So it's a matter of timing. So the current license is due, the renewal is due January of 24.
But if we join this compact, the state of Vermont will no longer collect $150 every 2 years. Is that correct?
Yes, but we'll collect the January one because it doesn't go into effect, the compact isn't going into effect till July.
So we've got a cushion.
Just wouldn't collect it, to be clear, for people who join the compact instead of continuing to be licensed in Vermont. And
Okay,
we
so
don't
you
lose
could
all of
choose.
that.
Yeah, you're not gonna lose all of that hundred
No,
and
they're
fifty
just
dollars.
losing, Mullen estimated approximately 106.
May I continue?
Yes.
Do we know what it will cost to join the compact site pack? What they charge?
There is I can look it up, there is a whole fee structure.
That would be very relevant.
Yeah,
We need to evaluate
I think
the numbers.
I heard something like 400 initial.
Well,
and then-
there's the amount that the state pays and then the amount that the individual pay, the provider pays.
I'd like to know how much the individual provider pays.
So that's the one that depends on which route they take. There's
Yeah.
a $40
Wish I
One-
could post this.
one-time fee.
Well, we can make you a,
You know what I can do even better? I'm gonna send this link to Jill.
and she can put
She
it
can
in.
just put it up on Oops.
Okay. Because we've got Ellen coming at 3:30.
Again, I'm gonna support it either way.
I
I'm
guess
just-
we're not gonna knock this out this afternoon. Speak of Ellen coming. Welcome to the world of psychology. I think this
All right.
committee needs it, so you might want to
Just
say.
someone else just pull it up when you get it, and you can see.
Okay, so right now, we're just looking at, they pay $150 a year, we think now,
Every 2 years.
every 2
years.
years. So our loss would be the number of psychologists who choose to not have a Vermont license and just go
Go through the compact.
through the compact, which I assume might, if you're here in Vermont.
Can you scroll up a little, Jill?
Hold on, it says for downloadable ones.
So $40 versus so $80 for buying.
There it is. Oop,
Yeah,
oh, you can get all
there's
four.
400.
So it's really $60 versus $150 is what. There you go. What's the second column?
So the left side is the telepsychology side, and the right side is the temporary in-person face-to-face practice side. So on the left side, the top fee is the one you pay to the compact commission, the $40 with no renewal fee. And the bottom one is the fee you pay to the Association of State and Provincial Psychology Boards. That's like the passport or the certificate, one-time fee, and then an annual renewal fee.
And our $150 fee is for both individuals or a practice?
These are all for individuals, and so are our fees. Our fee is a per licensee.
What about the practice?
It's interjurisdictional practice certificate. It's a certificate to practice in across jurisdictions.
So our
So it's
state,
not about a psychology practice, it's the verb practice.
our state of Vermont, $150 biannual fee could also be used for a practice?
No.
No, that's not a practice.
individual.
They're all individual license.
That's all we issue.
To
That's all
practice,
Two practice,
Yes,
not a
two-
practice.
yes.
not a
The
practice,
verb
it's to practice, verb, or ad.
To practice
To
for each individual.
practice.
So practice with multiple practitioners and have to get one per practitioner.
Yes.
Yes. Just like all of your attorneys have to be individually licensed, even though we all work here for the legislature.
And to go back to the timing piece, people would have to renew this January.
Yes.
Compact doesn't go into effect until July, so some people may or may not.
This is less than half what we're charging, so we can expect 2 years out, people, if they're doing the math, they're gonna choose this route.
If,
I mean, this is to buy in. If they wanted both pieces of it, they would be paying $150 annually to renew
Both pieces of it?
the telepsychology and the temporary in-person face-to-face.
Both, okay.
Right. But it would allow them to practice across
but
multiple
the
states.
temporary is it a limited number, right?
Temporary is a limited time.
We have, these are
Yeah.
these are not our temporary,
These are
okay.
not our.
These are
telehealth.
theirs,
This is all through the compact.
okay.
So
So
if you
if
pay
you
these
wanted,
fees, you can practice in, if Vermont joins 38 states doing telepsychology or short-term drop-in.
but if I wanted to see in-person patients in Vermont,
You need a license.
I would need the,
$150
that-
for 3 years,
yeah,
plus whatever the initial application.
application fee is. So that isn't cheaper, and you have a limited, no, it's a limited time, not a limited number.
The right-hand column on the screen
Yeah.
there, yes. is the-
Okay,
yeah.
so that wouldn't. If you really wanted to be a Vermont-based psychologist, that might not, and you didn't want to see a lot of patients in California, you actually like to talk to your patients in person sometimes. It might not, I mean, it's gonna vary with individual practitioner.
Exactly, and
And
each
their
practitioner gets to choose whether they want to join the compact. So
Right.
Vermont joining it makes the opportunity available to Vermont practitioners, but it does not require them to participate.
Okay. And the bottom line is, we don't know. We can know the best, nobody goes, or the worst, everybody goes. But in between that, it's a matter of personal choice.
Yes.
And we've got to decide if to join the 22nd century, we want to do this, because the scenes we're just doing, first it was nurses and it took years to get nurses through. And now that we got 4, I mean, COVID really put telemedicine on the map, and, okay. So we're gonna go on. Thank you. I think we sort of, oh.
Clear as mud?
That was simple.
Clear as mud.
There's mud, okay. We're going on to something equally clear, which is 248A. Nobody can say our life is not varied in this community. Okay. Hello.
Hello.
What have you sent us?
Ellen Tchaikovsky, Office of Legislative Counsel. So today I have draft 2.1 of your amendment to H110. Just a couple of very small changes from the draft we discussed on Friday.
Okay. Floor is yours.
So section 1 extends the sunset on section 248A an additional 3 years. That is the same amount of years that the House sent over. The new part is the report, which is in section 2. And so the 2 small changes of it, I fixed the date and I also added the committees. And so now it reads on or before January 15th, 2024. The Commissioner of Public Service, in consultation with the PUC, shall report to the Senate Committee on Finance and the House Committee on Environment and Energy on the process of siting telecommunications facilities under section 248A. The report shall address how to make the process easier to participate in for municipalities and individuals, how to encourage municipal participation, and recommend any necessary updates to 248A. The commissioner shall hear from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, the utilities, and any other interested parties.
Okay. So that gets us a study without having to get into law until next year. Oh,
Move it.
you can move it, and then we will have discussion.
I would move that we amend H110 with draft number 2.1 dated 4/24/2023 at 5:29 PM.
Okay. I'm getting a pretty good thing that some of my staff are working weekends and into the evening today. This one is not late. We had another one that was 10:30 PM. Now I know why they're all so happy when we go home and you see them on the street. They're all smiling.
It's over.
Okay,
When
we
you
have a
put 1:31
motion.
PM, it suggests that you have a lot of free time available for additional work.
Well, that was right before I came to your committee, so like, I don't know if you wanna
Okay.
weigh that as a positive either.
Oh, okay, we have a motion to amend with the draft that is before us, which is the extension as it came to us, and then the study committee that the department has agreed to do with the PUC. They both agreed to work on this to try and make it more affordable or more user-friendly. I know I got, and I think some of you got an email from Annette Smith, and I got ones from Brooke Dingledine. I don't know if the rest of you did. I will forward those to the commissioner so that she has them, and I'm sure they will be the interested parties that will show up and be part of this discussion. And I also would like, to have some discussion with the league about how they can facilitate towns, not, if they are in fact intimidated from joining the fray, to do so. And again, every town is individual, and I don't think we can say why they do it and not. The fray with some regularity. Okay, so motion to amend, further discussion. If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. I'm hearing that. I did not hear Senator Hinsdale and I can't see her, so I'm calling that 502. Okay, so we have this amended.
I would now move to, H110 as amended.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
That's as close as we can get, yes, okay. Any further discussion? The motion, here comes Senator Bray. Senator Bray, I'll give you a minute. We have just amended,
Excellent.
no, H110. This is to 48A with the amendment that is on your computer and you may be attached.
Yeah, 2.1.
Draft
Is it attached to the agenda?
2.1. Here it is. Yeah, it is there. It's everything we talked about.
Thank you for letting me get up to speed.
Okay, we have done that. Now the motion is to report the bill favorably as amended, and Senator Chittenden has made the motion. Okay, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no.
No.
Okay, so I'm getting that as, can I count? 5, 1, 1. That's 7. Good. I can still add at this hour. Okay, who would like to report this? You've already given you. You want to? I can do it.
I have no preference, happy to, but I'm also happy to do it.
No, that's fine. I get my share of big bills.
Same here. I mean, I'm not feeling
Yes.
like I'm looking for bills, but if someone doesn't want to do it, I'm. Gonna do it.
Thank you for hanging in there with us. Committee, we are done. I think we just found out that the compacts may not be.
We weren't sure.
Reporter is.
Senator Chittenden,
What did we just find out?
that the little compact bills might take us a little longer than we thought. Okay. to go through. I think this may be the most complex, but basically, it's going to depend on individual decisions by individual psychologists. And we went through this with the nursing compact. I might even report that. Maybe I was set to report it and COVID hit. So we did it 2 years later. But we don't know. We could ask for how the nursing compact is. We will schedule OPR to come in. We've got them tomorrow, and then we've got, okay, yeah, on Thursday, let's get OPR in to talk to us about the compact bills. And let's, yeah, put the compact bills on miscellaneous agricultural subjects. I thought we already did that. We have another one.
We had 115. That's 115.
This is 7472. Okay, well, at 2 o'clock
On April.
on Thursday, let's see if OPR can come in and see if we can get the drafters
Okay, yeah, Amaranth's gonna be in at 2:15, so I'll see if they get all done at once.
all at once. That would be good. Okay. All right. Tomorrow I've got Jake Feldman and Brad James coming in to see if they can help us understand what is going on. I think we learned on Friday that if we make any adjustment to the house site value now, that it's going, because the yield has been set, and whether we like it or not, people with higher priced houses are gonna pay less, and people amongst that income sensitized group will pay more. And because it is self-balancing. But there is, I know Senator McDonald is concerned about, we have tried for 80, it's, can't remember when we hit 80, but it's been in the 70s. I can't remember it getting to as low as 64%. And I would say, you know, Senator McDonald, maybe you can help us find out what those incomes were based on. Was it a percentage of poverty? Was it a median? Was it an average? And then we know we can look at what's happened to the average wage or the median, and start looking, if we want to do something for next year, we have to do it this year because the yield, the December 1st bill is based on the projected yield. So we've got that. And then, but if we're going to do something, it probably will go on miscellaneous tax. So we're going to take a look at it. And maybe Brad James can tell us why that is. I think that's something he could tell us. Okay. So I think that's it.
Sure, meeting is canceled today, by the way.
Oh, it is? Oh, good, so I won't feel guilty. Okay,
That's,
get you
well,
some.
that's 45 minutes. I didn't know I was going to have this afternoon.
Yeah. You can go
And
back.
use
and-
it wisely.
And it's that kind of day where each moment is there.
And it is not raining. Not too early, but it's not raining.
Whatever that's for.
415, yes, so McDonald and McCormick, we have a little brief committee meeting 415. Make sure everybody flee the building. Half an hour.
Change.
Change. You can go back in your informal attire, your evening attire.
Do you do forestry?
Yes.
Okay, I have told, I think he's still my constituent, a gentleman who locked me in his public garage. Actually, he was inspecting my car and then told me he wouldn't open the door until I listened to him. With Karen Ann Karen, who was his engineer. You want to talk about strange bedfellows.
Yeah.
This is my old Vermonter. He's been very concerned for years about logging and people that accidentally log a half acre of the neighbors.
So we need to change these laws. Started when I was in the House side and then we tuned it
I
up
know.
twice more. in the
Well,
Senate
he's
side.
got something else, and I've told
It's
him
called timber trespass.
I will personally send it to you and ask you to look at it.
Yeah, it used to be that the penalties were so large that people didn't mind if they did it.
It's too
But
low.
then
What's the
we
difference?
turned up the penalties based on tree size and stuff like that. You can also get in bigger trouble still.
Let me see if I can find it.
There's some pretty
He
impressive
doesn't want to give me.
stories about people logging other people's land.
The
Yes.
top of it was a sport.
Sport.